Production funding for Making It Up North is provided by the citizens of Minnesota through the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
From the top.
It's been an interest of mine to encourage students to tell their stories and to include Ojibwe language and culture.
We often learn best by doing. Explore how skills, trades, and knowledge are passed on to the next generation of creative makers in passing it on.
Welcome back to this week's ODOS News, your Fond du Lac Tribal and Community College campus news source.
A community college is a great place for thinking about passing on knowledge. We're at the Fond du Lac Community College with Liz Jacala, learning about the Ojibwe-Moan Resource Center and the Digital Art Studio. Thanks for inviting us.
Thanks for coming.
Tell us about this beautiful place.
Well, Ojibwe-Moan Resource Center was created about 6 years ago as a place for students to come and learn more about the language and culture of the Ojibwe Anishinaabe. And fortunately, I got selected to help things out here. So I've been busy selecting art and creating a place for students to come and make audio recordings or videos.
I know you as a musician and a storyteller, but how does TV news fit in your background?
Well, actually, when I think about it, my dad, he used to work for a station in Duluth when I was a little kid. He was the main engineer. Like, he tells stories about cutting and splicing tape, literally, and he must not had daycare or something. I had to go along with on a few occasions, and maybe it got in my blood, I don't know. But most of my time, is music. I'm a music faculty here on campus, and they asked Liz, if you could have something for the students, what would you want to have? And I said, a production studio. Lo and behold, it happened. We started out with some audio equipment, microphones, Pro Tools, and then it grew into possibility of video equipment, and so we collected some equipment, and then it was time to find the students.
And now you have a newscast. So tell me about what happens with the newscast. What's your objective there?
We do a weekly newscast with the students behind the camera, in front of the camera, writing the script. I really don't do much other than encourage.
Sunday, May 6, 2018 is the Fond du Lac Tribal and Community College Powwow.
They tell
Monday,
what's
May
going on
7,
campus
2018.
and in the area, things that might be of interest to our students. And we also do the weather and the language. We have a phrase of the week segment.
Buju, Kristen, Indigenous Cause, Makwa, Indudam, Asaba Kwanezaga Igning, and Dunjaba.
It's really been a vehicle just to get people used to the idea of media, Indigenous media. There's not a lot of Indigenous media, so it's been an interest of mine to encourage students to tell their stories and to include Ojibwe language and culture. This place speaks Ojibwe-Mo, like that's the language. And so recognizing that connection goes so far back, it can really be a grounding for a person to think of the language that way, to think of the sounds of the place. And then those sounds come through you in the 21st century, and you're making that connection to your ancestors, to the ideas of those people who left all these traditions here for us.
That's a beautiful way of thinking about passing it on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got it all set up and hopefully we'll have an impression. Magic! Jobs all print differently. Bag jobs tend to run slower because you want to make sure everything is lined up again. And bags are notoriously inconsistent.
So much of this is sensory, feel and sound as well as sight.
You want a nice sound of impression. You don't want the press to bind. That's pretty crucial. And it's just a nice sound, that little hiss of the ink, and that's how these guys are made. With love, one at a time. The big part is the setup. It's getting the press prepared to print. Once you get the printing started, sometimes, it goes relatively quickly. Sometimes. I'm looking for patterns that are interesting. I'd like the colors to overlap so that they mix a little bit. Just looking for something dynamic, something pretty. What I love about doing these is it's very painterly. And my focus in college was painting, so I love being able to use the roller like a brush. And it's also exciting because you honestly never know what it's going to turn out like until you print it. Especially when you start printing or inking on top of other colors. It's always a surprise. I like it. I'd say this is the early stages of proofing. I might bring a little bit more lightness into the blue. But look how pretty that is. I think it's intuitive to a certain extent, and I'm so lucky because, Rick Allen has taught me everything that I know about this particular type of printmaking, and watching him, printing for him, being able to see, the combinations he puts together. He's always available for, I sometimes ask just his artistic opinion about things, so that really helps.
All right, so you can turn it on.
All right.
Ready?
Ready?
All right.
All right.
All right, so now you can pull out back. There's no one better to teach than Janelle. She's just OCD enough so that she has the attention to detail that you need to run these things. She really cares about the final quality of the piece that comes out. So this is the next generation in Kenspeckle technology.
He's encouraging and thoughtful and meticulous. I'm grateful. I've been trained to be a quality printer, to really pay attention, to care about what comes off the press. It's a reflection of me. I can't imagine doing anything else. So I hope to continue doing this, keep learning. I learn every day. I believe the plan is at some point, when Rick and Marion are ready to move into doing something different, I would love to take over the press shop, keep it running, keep the babies oiled, and then ultimately train somebody else in. I love the idea of bringing in somebody else or more people that can find the passion in this work.
Tell me about the Digital Art Studio. What's going on in that piece of the Resource Center?
On some days, it's like nonstop flow of ideas and students, and other days, it's time that we can really, now we can edit. But there are people that will come in that want to record a song for their family. There are people that will come in and they want to record a video for a class. And luckily, the young people know how to run the equipment, because I do not. I know it's possible. And I think if I put my mind to it, maybe I'd be able to get there. But my mind is in all of these other places all the time. So luckily, Jeremy Gardner came to the campus as a football player, and then he was making beats on his laptop. He looked at the equipment as it was set up, and he said, "Wow, what do you do here?" I said, "Well, that's what I'm hoping you can help us with." And then that was, I don't know how many years ago. Now he is the studio coordinator.
Check.
He knows how to run the Pro Tools, he knows how to run the cameras, he's learning how to run the new equipment that's coming in. I get to be the idea person.
It's not just for the community here, it's for the greater community too, right?
Right, so we kind of work together on the scheduling.
Serendipity.
Darren Shabayash is a young man who is from Fond du Lac Reservation, and he was a student here, and his dad, Daryl, was my student back when I was teaching at the Ojibwe School, teaching music. When that question was posed to me, what should we do? I make a production studio, because there are so many musicians in the area. There are so many people with strong voices and ideas that need to be shared, but they didn't really have a way to do that. It builds relationships, it builds community, and that's what we're hoping to do here, is to build a community of storytellers using the new technology in a way that extends our circle.
You're doing a beautiful job at it, and we've only seen a little bit of it.
Oh, you betcha.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is we'll take it off, set it down. We'll put mortar on the bottom and on this cornerstone.
We're here at Halfway Ranger Station with the Northern Bedrock Historic Preservation Corps, and we're kind of reconstructing and fixing the chimneys on these buildings so they can be used.
These cabins were originally built in the 1930s by the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps. We've gotten to work on a few different projects up at this spot. We've worked on some log restoration here, cleaned up the site a little bit, and now we're going to do the chimney.
Okay, how's that holding up? So we're tuck pointing all the joints, grinding them out or chiseling them out, and then relaying stones that are bad.
The chimney back there is actually, it's a type of rock that they no longer quarry, so you have to be very careful with it. If you break one, like that's it. You can't just get another one that looks like it, because it's kind of one of a kind. So you have to have those really specialized skills to help preserve stuff like this.
I'll get the camera and we'll take a picture, take a look at that.
We are documenting all the stones, like mapping them out, taking pictures, and then we're putting all the stones back in the exact same spot. So it'll be pretty much the same chimney that was here before, that was built by the CCC.
I think in that picture this joint was really wide in here.
I think one of the coolest parts of this program is that you kind of get to be a part of the historical story as you're working on it.
We partnered up with the Minnesota Historical Society because they see a huge growing need for maintenance and repair on historic structures. And they also see a real diminishing pool of trades and craftspeople that know how to do these things. And we've devised and created a conservation corps model that specifically focuses on historic preservation trades. And the main goal is to get young people exposed and interested possibly in some of these trades, and then create a pathway for them to other schooling or job opportunities, things like that.
More of those ties.
We work with technical specialists, so these people that know the trades and are interested in being involved in training and in teaching the young adults some of these skills. And it takes the right person to be able to do that.
So, yep, that's good right now.
Mike is great to work with. It's been really cool to learn from him. And I'm really glad that we're getting to work on 2 different types of chimneys here. So we can learn how to do brick and stone, which is a pretty unique opportunity.
Kids are willing to learn, and they're doing a great job doing it. They enjoy putting the mortar down, and something new to them that they're catching on very quickly. And it seems like they're enjoying it.
It's a really cool thing to take away, I think, especially like for people who haven't worked with their hands as much, that at the end of the day you can look up and be like, hey, I built this. This is really cool.
It's an AmeriCorps program, so they're actually doing a term of service for the country, and they end up with a living stipend, but also an AmeriCorps Education Award, which is great because then they'll be able to use that to go on to different types of school or pay back loans on their other work. But it's been great, and everybody understands that there's a lot of work to do. There's a big backlog of maintenance and repair, and it's a win-win situation if we can get these young people excited about it.
I definitely want to work on some more stone projects. I think this is a really good foot in the door to kind of experiment some more with it.
Northern Bedrock is really different because you're not just working with things in boxes or crates in museums. You're literally rebuilding history. And that's just, you know, kind of an experience most people don't get to have.
The reason I signed up is because I really needed a new pair of slippers. Really.
Obviously, adults have the information, but they want to learn from somebody who's done it before.
I've taught this class, I believe this is my 5th time since the Ely Folk School has opened. It's been a pretty popular class.
And I like to try to grab both of them here so you don't have any shifting, so just flip it from there.
We're doing this particular wet felting style that uses wool roving. So that's like loose fibers off of the sheep that have been combed so they're all facing one direction. This process goes really fast, and it gives you more flexibility. If you're not good at designing knitted patterns, you can pretty much just shape it however you want it.
You know, in our mission statement, we talk about building community, and we talk about connecting to the wilderness and heritage and traditions of the area. So that's where we kind of look at when somebody proposes a class, we measure it against those criteria.
Instead of 3 on each side, try to do 2 on each side in this case.
Okay.
And maybe even just...
These are based on an old Finnish slipper that a lot of folks, you know, grew up with their grandparents wearing, and I've heard Tootsie be the name for them in the past.
Oh, yeah, that's perfect. So, yeah.
So I just ended up with more.
You must have somehow ended up with more, but
I had pretty big furry animals that I was running down.
This area has a rich traditional heritage, lots of different ethnic backgrounds, you know, starting with Native Americans and then adding in all the mixture of people, the Finns and the Italians and the Croatians and Serbs and all of those different people that settled here on the range. They have so many wonderful skills and traditions that we really just want to preserve that and keep the richness of the range here. We're, you know, right next to the Boundary Waters. We have wild ricing expeditions. They did a canoe flotilla all the way up to Lac La Croix to bless the canoe that they built last year. You know, those are just some unique experiences that you can't get anywhere else. This storefront, you know, has a great spot in town because it's right on Sheridan, which is kind of our main thoroughfare. And we also have some spaces in the back. We're in the future going to be building a forge in one of our back buildings, so that's kind of neat.
In Ely, we have a lot of people that live out in the woods and they like it that way, and that's fine, but there's all sorts of, you know, skills that some of us would really like to learn that we don't have the opportunity to unless we provide a space for that. So the folk school really helps provide a space for these skills to be shared that otherwise wouldn't be.
When we go to fairs or we're at the farmer's market, I'm always sort of looking. So I'll ask somebody, have you ever taken a class? Do you have any skills you'd like to share? Would you want to teach? And it's interesting because people's eyes kind of light up when they have something that they want to share.
So one other thing though, if you really want this to be your outer layer.
It seems like in this world that we live in that's just so fast paced and there's so many technological advances that people are sometimes losing track of the things that once held communities together. And so we feel like some of these skills actually bring people together, and that's a big part of our mission.
A bunch of people are getting the opportunity to stand or sit next to each other that they may have never met and have something in common to talk about. And actually the last time I taught this class, I had a gal that was, I think she was 13, and then I've had folks that are in their 80s, so, and men and women both will come to classes, at least with this, you know, slippers class for sure. Your left and right foot and your top and bottom.
Part of it was that I needed new slippers, and part of it was that I had some time off of work, and so I was looking to see what classes were offered. This is my first time at the Ely Folk School. I've been to several of the other folk schools in the area and at the Makerspace in Duluth, which I think is just part of a wonderful movement. Having interesting people teach us to make things for ourselves.
You'll also be sticking your hand in here and rubbing, like I have a fist again, you know, yeah, against like that. These are hands-on skills. They're not in your head book learning, and so they're best taught through, you know, language in person.
It's another reason to come to Ely, another important reason. Meet interesting people and learn to do cool things for ourselves. So it's very exciting.
So I need to cut my opening a little bit more. It's neat to learn things that other people have to share. I can't wait to see what I'll make next. Ishko Day. This is an Ishko Day.
One of the cool things that I see happening is the blend of traditional storytelling with all these modern tools and bridging that gap and bringing it forward. Is that part of the intent? Is that by design here?
My hope when we started, building the studio was that we would gather stories from the community that they would want to come in and that they would feel that this was their place and they were able to tell the stories here. I've always known about those early recordings, that the beginning of recording. I've known about that, I don't know, always, since I was 15 at least. I've known about those early recordings and I've been fascinated by them. And at the same time, I revered those recordings because I knew that they held these teachings, that they held those old voices, that they held these beautiful ideas of culture. And when I was thinking about building this studio, I thought, what better way to honor all of those ancestors and all of those storytellers than to build on that library, to build on that catalog of knowledge.
And now you're bringing in the hip-hop generation.
Yeah.
And I was going to tease you, is hip-hop storytelling?
Absolutely, yeah. It's new storytelling. The youth are, channeling, their experience in different voices and using different sounds, but it is still very much tied to this place. When you listen to Darren's music, there's no doubt that he's a Fond du Lac kid, like when you hear it, or even Jeremy moved here from Louisiana, but when I hear the music he's producing here, I can hear Minnesota in there when he's performing. Or even some of the students that come in, I think about Derek DeLille. He's an older student, non-traditional student, and finding his voice again now with all of this equipment, and it's really exciting to hear how he is putting the language in our teachings. He's funneling this, like compressing all of this quality of life in through then hip hop, and making it very much a new expression of some old ideas.
You have a beautiful way of passing on your tradition. Thank you very much for letting us come over and check it out.